calling this meeting back to order over there. Okay. I've used it so seldom this year. Anyway, I have a couple of things before we go into the public hearings that will only take a couple of minutes. First thing is I wanted to read an explanation about what we're going to be doing in the new year about, which I should have done earlier in this meeting, but I'm going to do it now, about public comment, because we are changing our procedure a bit to accommodate these virtual meetings and public input and public and present input. So starting January 12th, we will require pre-registration for those wishing to provide virtual public comment. This will help us plan how long our meetings are likely to run. The pre-registration form will be made available to the public the week prior to the meeting. Instructions and broad public information will be shared to make sure our residents are informed of this new process. The deadline to register to provide virtual comments is 5 p.m. the day before the meeting. Individuals who wish to make their comments in person have that option to pre-register using the online form, but they can also sign in when they get here the day of the meeting. In-person comments are not subject to the 5 p.m. pre-registration deadline. To be respectful of everyone's time, we will accept general public comment through citizens to be heard at the beginning of the meetings. Individuals who wish to speak on specific agenda items will also have the opportunity, will alternately have the opportunity to speak at the beginning of the meeting or as the agenda item is being considered. Individuals will continue to have the opportunity to submit public comments in advance through an online form or voicemail on matters coming before the board. More information will be made available on our county website, www.pinellascounty.org. And we will probably take a couple of weeks to get into that routine because we're just saying that now. Secondly, where's that piece of paper? We have something that inadvertently got dropped off the agenda or never made it onto the agenda earlier in the meeting, is a proclamation for Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Founders Day, which is December 15th. So Commissioner,
thank you.
Commissioner Flowers is going to read the proclamation.
Thank you so very much, Madam Chair. A proclamation from Pinellas County Board of County Commissioners. Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Zeta Upsilon Omega Chapter. Whereas Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated was founded in 1908 on the campus of Howard University in Washington, D.C., and is the oldest Greek letter organization established by African American college-trained women. And whereas on December 15, 1955, the Zeta Upsilon Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority was chartered 65 years ago to begin its journey of service in the Pinellas County community. And whereas Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority is a service-oriented organization with over 300,000 members from all over the world in all professions, who embodies the motto, supreme in service to all mankind. And whereas Zeta Upsilon Omega chapter is responding to the needs of the community by supporting the Alpha Kappa Alpha 2018-2022 international program theme, exemplifying excellence through sustainable service, under the leadership of Dr. Glenda Glover, international president. And whereas this illustrious group of women is implementing programs of service, impacting countless lives, enriching minds, and encouraging lifelong learning, providing for the underserved locally, initiating social action to advance human and civil rights, and works collaboratively with other groups to maximize outreach while exemplifying the commitment of service to the community. And whereas the members of the Pinellas County Board of County Commissioners express their highest commendations and appreciation to the members of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated on their 65th anniversary and for their service to the citizens of St. Petersburg. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Pinellas County Board of County Commissioners that December 15th, 2020 be recognized as Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated Zeta Upsilon Omega Chapter Day, and this has been signed by all of the county commissioners. It's the 65th anniversary for the Zeta Upsilon Omega chapter, of which I am a very proud member. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. First item on public hearings is item 41. Sorry.
Agenda item number 41 is case number CW 20-19, which is a proposal by the City of Tarpon Springs to amend the county-wide plan map from residential low-medium to preservation regarding 2.39 acres, more or less, located at 685 and 687 East Klosterman Road. The public hearing was properly advertised. An affidavit of publication has been received for filing. No correspondence has been received. The matter is properly before the authority to be heard.
Thank you. Does anybody need a presentation on this?
Just move approval.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any public comment, Brian? We don't have anybody here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, if there are any members of the public that wish to comment on agenda item number 41, please raise your hand virtually in the Zoom meeting or hit *9 on the telephone. And Madam Chair, we do have one person that wishes to speak. This is Katie Cole. Katie, if you'll go ahead and unmute yourself and give us your spelling and address for the record, you'll have 3 minutes to address the board.
Katie Cole with the law firm of Hill Ward Henderson, 600 Cleveland Street, Clearwater, Florida, Suite 800. Not to belabor things, I'm happy to answer any questions. We represent the property owner who has proceeded with this request.
Thank you, Katie. Okay. If there are no questions, comments, we have you got the motion and second. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Item 42.
Agenda number 42 is case number CW 2020, which is a proposal by the City of St. Petersburg to amend the countywide plan map from residential medium to multimodal corridor regarding 0.14 acres, more or less, located at 1525 29th Avenue North. The public hearing was properly advertised. An affidavit of publication has been received for filing. No correspondence has been received. The matter is properly before the authority to be heard.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
I move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay. Do we have any comment from the public, Brian?
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, if there are any members of the public that wish to comment on agenda item number 42, please hit *9 on the telephone or raise your hand virtually in the Zoom meeting. And Madam Chair, nobody wishes to comment on this item.
Okay. We have a motion from Commissioner Flowers, second from Commissioner Long. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Item 43.
Do we have any cards on 43?
You have one.
Would the person who wishes
Speak.
to testify please stand up?
It's the applicant. Joanne Kilgore. I think she's coming.
Ms. Kilgore? Since this is a quasi-judicial hearing, we have to swear you in so that you can give your testimony, okay? You can put your package down on the podium. Very good. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you. I now need to read something before we get started, okay? Agenda item number 43 is case number ZON 2009, which is an application of Joanne Kilgore for a zoning change from C1, neighborhood commercial, to E2, employment-2, on approximately 0.47 acres located at 11697 Walsingham Road in unincorporated Largo. Since this is a quasi-judicial hearing, all persons who wish to give testimony must be sworn in. The public hearing was properly advertised. An affidavit of publication has been received for filing. No correspondence has been received. The matter is properly before the board to be heard, Ms. Chairman.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions of Ms. Kilgore? Okay. Motions?
Move approval, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. If there are no questions, do we have anybody on the line, Brian? Almost forgot.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, if there are any members of the public that wish to comment on agenda item 43, please hit star 9 on the telephone or raise your hand virtually in the Zoom meeting. And Madam Chair, there's nobody that wishes to comment from the public.
Where's that dog coming from?
That was mine, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I thought we had a canine commenter. All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you, and y'all have a good holiday.
Okay, you too.
Merry Christmas.
All right, item 44.
Do we have people wishing to?
I do, yes.
Okay. Would anyone who is testifying on item number 44, which I assume you know which item that is, please stand so I can swear you in. You only show one comment card?
No, I have several,
Would
4
you-
or 5.
Would you mind reading out their names so they know the stand?
I have, oh, I'm sorry, 44. Is Rick, thank you. Jordan, thank you. Amber Scavone.
She's not speaking?
Oh, okay. Wanda McCaughan. Stephen Beal. Oh, okay, I can't see him. Lindell Newton.
Not speaking. She's waiting.
Okay, all right, thank you. Can't hear you. And Billy something.
Not speaking either.
Okay.
Would the
all right,
folks
great.
who may be speaking or testifying please raise your right hand, and I will swear you
Why
in.
did we fill in the card?
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Okay.
Agenda item number 44 is case number ZLU20-10, which is an application of JRFF Incorporated for a zoning change from R3 Single Family Residential and R4 1, 2, and 3 Family Residential to RM Multifamily Residential. The application is also for a land use change from residential low to residential low medium on approximately 0.55 acre located to approximately 200 feet south of Almerton Road on the east side of 119th Street in unincorporated Largo. The public hearing was properly advertised. An affidavit of publication has been received for filing. One email and one petition with 19 signatures in opposition has been received by the clerk's office. In addition, 3 letters and a petition with 21 signatures in opposition were received in connection with the local planning agency hearing. The matter is properly before the board to be heard.
Okay, thank you. Do we need a brief presentation on this since we have people here? Can somebody, thank you very much.
Good evening, Commissioners. Michael Schoderbach with the Planning Department. This is a request for a zoning and a land use change. The property is approximately 0.55 acres. It's in unincorporated Largo. It's just up the road from here on the south of Almerton Road on the east side of 119th Street. It's a request for a future land use amendment from residential low to residential low medium, and also a zoning atlas amendment from most of the property is R4, which allows single-family duplex or triplex, and there's a small remnant portion of R3 on the property, which is for single-family residential. The request is to change the whole property to residential multifamily, RM. The proposed use is a multifamily housing development for affordable housing for veterans. Now, tonight, we're only hearing The portion that deals with the zoning and the land use, if approved, the applicant is seeking an affordable housing density bonus. That would give them 50% density bonus and also for affordable veterans housing. So you see the property here outlined in yellow. It's currently vacant. It's on the east side of 119th Street. It's one parcel south of Almerton Road. The property to the north is a commercial piece of property. It's currently vacant, had a restaurant in it. The property just east of that has a cell phone tower on it. Directly east of the property are 2 single-family homes and a vacant residential property. Directly abutting on the south is 2 single-family developments. Across the street to the west, across 119th, are all single-family homes fronting 119th Street. Just to the west of those, along that first road that runs east-west, is 4 fourplexes. Off to the further to the east in the area, you have a couple of churches, commercial that's right along Almerton Road, and just on the west side of that, the picture up there is Ridgecrest Park. And the next slide. Here you can see the current future land use and zoning of the property. Again, it's mostly R4 with a small piece of R3. The surrounding developments directly to the north, right along Almerton Road, it's all C1, which is neighborhood commercial. That's there in the pink. To the east is R3, zone where the single family is, and then also the church. To directly south of the property is R3 as well. If we go south of 132nd, it then changes to R4. Across the street, across 119th Street to the west, is all zoned residential multifamily, RM. And the land use there, you can see in the pink is the commercial neighborhood. The yellow is residential low, and that orange where the fourplexes are residential medium. Next slide. It's just a bit closer picture of the property outlined in red. You can see it's vacant. On the north side of that is that vacant restaurant. You can see the cell phone tower, the abutting single-family homes, the church further off to the east, and then to the west across 119th, again, single-family homes. And just on the left side of that picture, you can see a couple of those fourplexes. And that's Almerton Road on the northwest there. Next slide. This is just a picture of the property looking from 119th Street. Again, it's vacant. There's a few trees on the property. Next slide. This is looking north on 119th Street towards Almerton Road. It's a signalized intersection there at 119th and Almerton. Next slide. And then we swing around looking to the south. Property's there on your left where you see that first car. That's the single-family home that's adjacent to it. Then you can see the single family across the street. Next slide. And then this is on the east, the street that's to the east of the property, the houses that are behind it, and then that's the vacant lot. The subject property is behind that fence there. Next slide. Again, their intended use, the applicant is proposing to develop the site with a 9-unit veterans affordable housing multifamily. They're looking at a 2-story apartment. Potential impacts we look at, one is traffic. The approval will generate increased daily trips. However, it will not increase the level of service on surrounding roadways. 119th Street is a minor collector. Almerton Road is an arterial roadway. Both have adequate level of service. So you have an increase of 11 trips based on the maximum potential of the RLM, 30 if they were to subsequently get the affordable housing density bonus. And then for your information there is the current density allowed. Right now they could do 3 units, either 3 single-family homes or a triplex. Under the residential low medium, they'd be allowed up to 6. And then if they got the affordable housing density bonus, that could increase to 9. Next slide. We find that the proposed land use and zoning amendments are appropriate. It's compatible with the surrounding area. Right off of Almerton Road, arterial roadway, commercial, Then we look at that you have kind of a medium density residential before you get into the neighborhood. So we find that that's consistent. Find it consistent with the comprehensive plan and consistent with the countywide plan. It's already RLM on the countywide plan, so if approved, it would not require a countywide plan amendment. Again, staff recommends approval, and the LPA voted 6-0 for approval. And I'll answer any questions.
Questions? Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, if I could, thank you. So the property to the west is RM, and that's what they're wanting to change to.
Correct.
But what that would allow is the two-story 9-unit complex.
That's what they're proposing, yes.
Okay. Across the street in the RM, it seems like up until you get to that corner, it seems predominantly single-family.
That's correct. Most of the development in that RM to the west is all single-family with the exception of those 4 quadplexes.
And, okay, I just wanted that clarification. It seems like there's a predominance of residential in this area.
Yes.
So, I mean, and when you talk about a single story with a couple units, 3-4 units is one thing. You're talking about 2-story, 9 units. It changes, it seems to me it changes a little bit.
Sure, most of the homes in the area is predominantly single-family, single-story. The only multi-story nearby are those 4 quadplexes, are 2-story.
Could you show that picture again? The 2-story, I didn't see that.
Brian, if you could go 1 slide more, I believe. Nope, back 1. Nope. Go forward 1. You can just see them on the bottom left there, the 2 white buildings, one's kind of, they're rectangular, those 2 there. And there's 2 more just like it off to the east.
To the west?
To the west, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And then there's the church that is pretty high. Other question? Yes, Commissioner Flowers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. They can only go up to the 9 units if the density bonus is approved, which will be in a separate meeting, not here today.
Correct. Here you're looking at the request from residential low to residential low medium, which would be 3 units to 6 units. If they got approved, then they would have to apply for affordable housing through Community Development Department.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? We have people that would like to speak.
Thank you.
First, thank you. First up is Rick. Stop. I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, I'm going to defer to Jordan. We're the applicants.
Oh, okay, well, okay. I have, but if you'd like to say anything, the others that I have are anti, so.
Thank you.
How are we doing, everybody?
Great.
My name's Jordan, my partner Rick back there. Local business owner, 4 or 5 businesses in the area, licensed building contractor, also a veteran, 3rd generation. And yeah, saw this place look like a good spot to put some housing units in, right up the road, relatively low risk, good spot for people to be. I like keeping my business local. I live in Bel Air. My main business is Pools by Jordan, right here on the corner of Walsenham and Indian Rocks. And seeking the zoning change to be able to put 6 versus 3 there, and then the affordable housing to go that way. And they will be restricted to veterans on an income-controlled program that I believe every tenant has to vet through the county in order to be able to move in. And, 1 or 2 story, I'm open on. 2 story, just with the parking and the retention and stuff like that, has led to have some of the unit sizes a little borderline if I were to condense them into 1 story, but that's certainly something we're going to look at. Either way, it'd be a nice new building. I have a couple of printout 3Ds that we have. I met with the everybody on the opposition list at their request a week ago and tried to address any concerns they had. Had a nice meeting there, and any questions on the project, I'd be happy to answer.
So you haven't decided whether it's 1 or 2 stories yet?
Well, we're looking at 2 stories in our first concept, just because of the parking requirements, but based on further review, it looks like we can get away with a spot and a half per unit instead of 2. So we'd be open to looking at the site plan to try and squish it down to a 1-story. I just don't really want to build 400 or 500 square foot units.
Right.
And then at 2, some of them are a little bit larger, so I'd like to see if I can get them at, 700 to 1,000, somewhere in there, 1 and 2 bedrooms. Yeah, if I can get it to 1-story, great. I mean, it's going to cost me more to build 2-story. It's not gaining units, it's just, and I'm getting the same rent for them either way because it's controlled rent for a 1 or 2 bedroom. So if I build 2, it would only be to have a more comfortable living environment for the people that are in there.
Okay. Just questions? All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Well, next up, we have Wanda McCauthen.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Wanda McCarthy. I live in the Greater Ridgecrest community. I'm the president of the Friends of Ridgecrest, come to speak on the behalf of the community and most residents that lives on that street. Yes, as it said, it is a single-family housing resident, and we like to keep it a single-family housing resident. We like to keep it to have someone to build a home on it, to have ownership, not rent a property. Yes, those apartments that they was talking about in the slides that was built some years and years ago for the community, which was the big R, but then it has been changed hands then. Those apartments to us are eyesore now because the owners and the residents do not keep the surrounding clean. We are trying to clean up our community to have a better community than to raise our family. So yes, I stand in opposition of building those 9 units or either a 2-unit. We like to have it as a single-family housing, so for someone to have ownership, to be proud of their property, and not a multi-family unit. So we do say, please do not prove it, because it's rental property for one thing, and like we say, we like to keep it as a single-family housing area for our community. Thank you. We are proud of our community. We like to keep it as a single family, and we're doing things to improve our community for families to live in. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen Beal.
I wasn't sworn in, and on the card, I did choose the option to speak. So I didn't raise my hand when
Do you want to speak or not?
I'm happy to say a few words if that's okay.
Well, we'll just swear you in then.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Right.
Good morning. I'm sorry. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'd first like to thank the developer for taking the time out to come and visit with us and field the questions that we posed to him. Also, thanks to Ms. Wanda, a longtime community resident and the president of Friends of Ridgecrest. As Ms. Wanda stated, we are at this point in time against it. We have a long history and extensive experience with affordable housing in our community, and it hasn't been a favorable situation. On the slide that they presented, Ms. Wanda mentioned a property that was once called the Big R is in horrible condition. We also have, and these properties are within an eighth of a mile, maybe a quarter of a mile within one another. We also have a property called Rainbow Village, which used to be called Ridgeview. So we have quite a bit of affordable housing in the greater Ridgecrest community, which isn't a large community at all. And as you've seen on the slide, the proposed multifamily development is surrounded by single-family housing on 3 sides, except for one, where the small building, which was once a restaurant, prior to that, it was a fruit stand, fruit and vegetable stand owned by a longtime community resident who has since passed away. So at this time, we are against the proposed zoning change, and would like to take additional time to research the issue if possible. So thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Okay, Lindell Newton. They went to find him. I think they had to go across the hall. Is Lindell Newton coming? Say what? Not speaking, okay. All right. Back to us then. Oh, I'm sorry. Do we have any comment online? Or-
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, if there are any members of the public that wish to comment on agenda item, this is 44, correct?
Yes.
Please hit star 9 on the telephone or raise your hand virtually in the Zoom meeting. And Madam Chair, there's nobody that wishes to comment online.
Okay, thank you. Do you have something, Commissioner Long?
Well, I was just curious, given the last gentleman that spoke's comments about how he would like additional time to be able to speak to the applicants, and I thought I heard the applicants say that they had spoken with everybody that was in opposition. Did I misunderstand that?
Well, it sounded like he did speak to them. I think they wanted time to think about it.
Oh, well.
Or to come up with something different.
Michael Schoderbach, Planning.
Thank you.
Last Thursday, the planning staff held a forum with the neighbors in a property, the church that's just to the east there. We invited the Friends of Ridgecrest, they invited community members out, and the applicant to present their proposal and field questions.
So did they express any difference of opinion between one-story and two-story? Or was it just between ownership and rental?
Both.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Eggers?
Just so the property as it sits now has part of it, it looks like about 20% of it is R3.
That's correct.
And then the other is R4, which could be multifamily, right?
Up to a triplex, yes.
Triplex, I mean,
sir.
that's multifamily.
Yes, sir.
So currently, if we did nothing, they could build a triplex and a single-family home? Is it
No,
delineated?
just a triplex. The density would only allow for 3 units currently. So the
Okay.
max they could do is either divide it into 3 single-family lots or a triplex.
Okay, and they could use the whole property to do that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, even though the one is just single-family, the part?
Yes, because the part that is R4, it meets the minimum lot size requirements
Okay.
for a triplex development.
So currently, they could build 3 on there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Flowers?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the quandary, I think, that we have not just in the Ridgecrest area, but I think throughout the entire county, because we're landlocked, and so property is at a premium wherever you go. We have, I think, as a commission and other cities, have really looked at expanding its workforce and affordable housing base. And the only way you can do that is by having properties that are either vacant lands or rehabilitation of old properties to try to accommodate the need. My other quandary is my mom worked for Head Start, which was in the middle of Rainbow Village for years. She was the deputy director of Head Start, so I'm very familiar with the corner store and the vegetables. I'm very familiar with the properties that they're talking about. But I also know that one of the things we're trying to do within the African American community is to build wealth, and the way to build wealth is through home ownership. But not all veterans are in a position right now to be able to purchase a home. So, Commissioner Eggers, thank you so very much for your comment. That's what I was looking at. They have the opportunity to build 3 units there, which those units could be built with over 1,000 square feet per unit. That doesn't mean you couldn't have 2 people in 1 unit, which may still accomplish the task. That would be up to them. But I also like the fact that they're not trying to put someone into a matchbox of 700 square feet. That's less than an efficiency. So I really wish this was something where the neighborhood and the gentleman could have come to an agreement, because it fits the need of veterans. We have veterans that are in transitional housing that could really benefit from this. But I do understand the community and the apartments that they're talking about that are blighted in that area, and what they're trying to do to really build up their community through a number of programs and partnering with the IMA Interministerial Alliance and several others. So this is a hard one, because either way they can build, just not as many units as they would like. And we'd be meeting a need, but maybe not the greatest need. And just looking at some of the projects you guys have approved that have come out of the ground prior to my arrival, I think you've done an awesome job in addressing affordable housing, both for veterans and working families. So this is a tough one.
I was thinking the same thing. It is tough.
Yeah.
Because we need more and more and more affordable housing. But I know how hard Ridgecrest has worked to get single-family homes and to get home ownership going, and how hard Habitat has worked in that area just to build single-family homes that people can afford. I know that you have experience with affordable housing. I know that you also have good experiences with affordable housing. The units that the Housing Authority built right there for seniors, right there at 113th or off 113th, are beautiful. And those are affordable. Those are 100% affordable housing. I also know that Rainbow Village is going to be rebuilt by the Housing Authority as soon as they get the money together. And it's going to be beautiful. And there will be some multifamily housing in there. And those will also be all rental, as they are now. Boy, I don't know. I want to encourage you to sell that property to Habitat for Humanity, but that's not my job. So, anybody else? What else do we need to know to make this decision? Because this is hard. Yeah.
Michael here still? I'm sure he's here, right?
He's
Michael?
here.
Probably ought to just stay near, so I'm sorry about that.
It's okay.
Obviously, you can do multifamily here. It's not a single family. It is single families that live here, but there's also the ability to do multifamily already.
Yes.
So it's a matter also of being comfortable with not putting too much on a piece of property, even though this density bonus issue is something that we've kind of embraced for affordable housing. This may not be the neighborhood to do 9 units. I mean, that's what we're talking about. I mean, you're talking 3 now, maybe if you get 4 or 5 units and you get 600, and I'm not pretending to know the square footages, but they're not 400 square foot units and they're not 1,000 foot units. But you give them some latitude to build maybe 700 square foot units, because those are nice sizes. You can get a couple bedrooms if you need to, and it gives folks a chance to have a decent place. So it kind of gets you in between. Now, how do we get there with the tools that we have here? I mean, it doesn't sound like we can get there. We don't have the say on the density bonus.
Correct. On your most of our single-family developments, from RA all the way up to R3, those affordable housing density bonus requires Type 2 review through the Board of Adjustment and Appeals. when we implemented the new code at the beginning of 2019, we took the multifamily properties and them commercial areas that we turned that into a type 1 review, which is a staff. So that's handled through the community development department. So I just wanted to present that they are seeking, and then they have said that they are seeking the affordable housing density bonus.
Right.
So it's not here. What they've put together is a concept plan, which they presented last Thursday to the community. Based on my quick look of that, they could meet parking, landscaping, stormwater requirements for the property with the 9 units. Right now, with the R4, so again, they could do up to a triplex on there. They could go multi-story with that as well today. That wouldn't require any change. It'd go directly to site plan. So.
You're not likely to do that for 3 units, but yeah, you could do it, is what you're
Yes.
saying, yeah. So the only way to do this then, would be to have a development agreement?
To limit any,
Yeah,
and to have a site plan, yes, that would require a development agreement. Then if you wanted to institute max on the density, max on, landscaping.
understand,
parking,
I get
all
it,
that.
yeah, I understand.
We didn't feel as staff, based on the size of the property, the location, staff did not feel like this warranted a development
I
agreement.
understand, I get it. I'm just trying to figure out a way to limit
Sure.
the number of properties or units, and it sounds to me like that's the only way to do it, other than turning this down. So we're maybe missing an opportunity to get 5 or 6 units
Yes,
instead of 3. So,
that's correct.
Well, and I guess I'm wondering if, even if he went back and tried to do that, would the community be accepting of a rental property in the first place?
well,
And,
but they could have that now. I mean, we could.
well, they could for a triplex.
Without anything, they could do a
Could have
triplex.
they
yeah.
could
Yes,
end
you
up
could
with a
have
triplex. yeah.
rental, we don't look at whether it's owner occupied or rental, if it's single family, triplex, multifamily.
And of course, if they're done well, like you were talking about down the street or around the corner, if they're done beautifully and you get, people love to keep their places up, just like if you own it. I mean, I'm not saying in all cases, I know there's some situations but, it doesn't necessarily translate to a property being run down, just because you're going rental. But they have the ability to do it anyway, so that's not really an issue here. It's just
Correct.
how many rental units, so.
Okay,
Wouldn't
Can
you-
I ask a question of the
Please.
applicant?
sure. We didn't do the
Yeah.
whole thing at the 20, yeah,
They have plenty of time, probably.
yeah.
I don't want to belabor the moment, but just a question of you, if you could share it. Your rationale for building 9 units instead of 3 units, is that because it just kind of makes the financial picture work better, increasing the number of units for your return on the property? Or is it because you just want to build the max number of units you can get on that site to try to be able to provide housing for veterans?
It's probably a little bit of both. So I'm a value kind of guy, and being in business for myself, I have probably 30 people that work for me in the county. I don't want to go into something and underutilize the property, and I don't believe with the unit cap being on there currently, I'm already prohibited from putting more than 9 units in my best case by the size of the land based on the units per acre. So there's no way for me to even submit to try to build more than 9. Because if that were the case, if a developer wanted to build more units and it wasn't capped by the lot size, you go up another story or do one of these, 200 unit developments somewhere. Not that you do that on this lot, but 1 story, 2 story is kind of the normal thing there. But if I only had 3 units instead of 9, that triples my cost per unit, and it kind of deads the project. So, this is my first residential development. I've done a bunch of commercial stuff, big things, so this should be kind of a walk in the park in the sense of me developing and things to kind of anticipate and deal with there. But at 9, with my unit costs down on the, to X per unit, leaves me a little bit of buffer to go into kind of a new territory and build something nice and be more concerned with how the units are going to turn out and the finishes I'm putting in them versus trying to just, have to worry about that too much. So The profit on it is kind of secondary in the sense of being able to put the right amount of units in there. And I think, you know, in the math side of it, even if my footprint, I think with this, my footprint's going to be, top of my head, 6,000 square feet, right? If I'm, let's say, 9,000 or 10,000 total square feet, I've probably got a 5,000 or 6,000 square foot footprint on a 22,000 square foot lot. So really, my building's only going to take up about a quarter of the property. So I know it sounds like 9, and it's, you know, a few more than compared to what I can build there currently, but in relation to the surrounding area and the landscaping plan they're going to have me put together, we're only really taking up about a quarter of the footprint of the property.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
And is it your plan to build this and then operate it yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I said, I got business roots around here, plan to keep it. I'll be the one on the hook for maintaining it, so if the thing goes off the rails, I mean, I'm gonna be the one getting tickets to phone calls, but anybody that's driven by the property in the recent, I mean, I've already got landscapers out there every 2 weeks, keeping the place clean and making sure it's not grown wild. And when we were buying the property, we found out, you know, 4 feet of the neighbor's house was on the property.
Thanks.
Yeah, so instead of, you know, being big bad developer over that, I'm like, just give the guy the 4 feet of the property. So cut it off of there, and here you go. And you know, it's nice and local for me, and it's I like the good cause, and I think it's the right fit for the property there.
Yes.
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve this issue based on the fact that it clearly establishes the goals of our objectives for the county for this next year in terms of building affordable housing. It was unanimously recommended by the local planning agency, and I would request at the same time that the developer continue to work with the community and the neighbors to address any concerns that they have, so that you become good partners with the community and you keep your property values up, which is in your best interest to do so. And I like the fact that he's focused on providing affordable housing for veterans, and God knows they need it. So I move the approval of the agenda item.
Oh, hold on, wait a,
I'll second for the purposes of discussion for
Thank you.
Robert's rules.
okay, go ahead.
This multifamily for veterans, give me your thinking about that. Tell me what's driving you and what's going to, you know, ensure that it's going to be for veterans. Could you just...
Well, so my understanding is the county actually puts a restriction on it for every income qualified tenant. So it's going to be stabilized housing of the sort in terms of income anyway. My intent's fully for veterans working through the VA and their VASH program down there. So it's basically subsidized housing, but the veterans go to the VA, they're on a track program, all right? Medical care and job assistance and all that stuff comes in with the housing. So they don't just get the housing and can just hang out there. They have to go, from my understanding, is take part in this program to get everything together for themselves. But in terms of, I believe, regular housing versus standardized income housing was the question?
No, I was just really curious as to what was driving you towards the veteran multifamily versus just regular multifamily.
Well, regular multifamily would have been a regular Section 8 program. You know, if somebody would have came in here and, you know, built lower finishes and 600 square foot units, and that's not what I like to do. I build swimming pools. I go out, I design cool stuff where nothing exists, and I get to build it. So here I'm like, oh, I'd like to build a, you know, Key Westy style new building thing. That kind of stuff is fun for me to create. You know, I'm a third generation veteran. You know, my grandfather, waiting on his records there, but my dad actually has his name in the sidewalk down at Admiral Farragut, valedictorian of 78, and then he went to West Point. So, and he was a captain and all that good stuff. So not only do I hear all the stories about guys that come back there, you know, I'm non-combat, different scenario, but a lot of these guys come back, and between, you know, suicide and all the other issues that they have to deal with, having a nice place to live shouldn't be something that they need to worry about. And I know if I go build veteran housing, it's going to be the nicest veteran housing available. They're going to live there. That won't be at the top of the concern. They'll have room to roam outside. It's a nice proximity because it's on the edge of single family, but it's literally the last lot in that neighborhood, right next to the commercial buildings, right next to Omerton. They'll be able to get where they got to go. And it's something I'd like to do.
Well, that's kind of what I wanted to hear a little bit about. I'm familiar with the VA program, the BASH program you're talking about, and I have a brother that's taken advantage of it as well in another area of the county. So I know it works well, and it works well for veterans, and they do a good job of keeping it up. But I just wanted to know what was driving you. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, just FYI, we did have a hand go up online. I just want to make you aware before you took a vote.
Okay. Do we have any other questions here? Okay, well, let's hear.
So this is Deb Pariano, ma'am, and I'll go ahead and unmute. Deb, if you can give us your first and last name and address.
And
Go
that
ahead,
person
Tom.
needs to be.
Commissioner,
And
I
Brian,
need to interrupt.
I need to swear her in, too.
Very good.
Okay.
Okay.
Ma'am, do you
Yeah.
swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Would you please say I do?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
Just quickly, I live on 119th Street and was in attendance at the meeting with the developer and the Friends of Ridgecrest. I think one of the issues not being addressed here is that the BASH program is for homeless veterans with severe mental, physical health problems, or substance abuse disorders. We have a lot of children and a lot of elderly in this neighborhood, and I bringing in a homeless with diminished functional capacity, I don't see as a good fit, but that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Ms. Pariano, just for the clerk record, can you give us your address, first, last name, and address, please?
It's Deborah, Debora, Pariano, Pariano, 13216 119th Street, 33778.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Any other questions of staff or the applicant? All right, then. We have a motion from Commissioner Long, second from Commissioner Flowers. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. Okay. Item carries 6-1.
Who was the negative vote?
I was. I know, I don't. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Item 45.
Agenda item number 45 is case number ZON-20-11, which is an application of Bryant Wyant for zoning change from R4, 1, 2, and 3 family residential to RR rural residential on approximately .94 acres located at 12317 95th Street in unincorporated Largo. Who do we have testifying on
I
this?
have three.
Do you want to mention their names so they know to?
Brian Wyant, Hannah Wyant, and Christina Wyant. We have a family.
That seems to be a trend. Would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. The public hearing was properly advertised. An affidavit of publication has been received for filing. No correspondence has been received. This matter is properly before the board to be heard, Mrs. Chairman.
Thank you. Do we need a presentation at all? No. Do we have any questions?
Was that Peters or Seal? I couldn't.
That was Peters. Anybody would like to second that? Okay, well, I can't do it. Thank you. Jeez. Okay, no questions? Nothing? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, I'm sorry. Public comment. Brian.
Thank you, Madam
Oh,
Chair. At this
and-
time, if there are any members of the public that wish to comment on agenda item number 45, please hit
Well-
star 9 on the telephone or raise your hand virtually in the Zoom meeting. And Madam Chair, there's nobody that wishes to comment.
Okay, and you don't need to comment if we didn't have any questions or anything, so, okay. I believe, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Thank you. Item 46.
46 and 47 have been deferred,
Oh,
according to my notes.
oh, okay.
That is correct. It'll be deferred
Murphy,
to a meeting in
doesn't say so on
January.
here. Okay. All right, 48 then.
Agenda item number 48 is a legislative petition to vacate submitted by Watt Leo, I guess I should have practiced this beforehand, Maxirarum, Incorporated, to vacate the 16-foot wide alley lying easterly of Lot 7, Block 9, and westerly of Lots 5, 6, and a portion of Lot 4, Block 9, Anna Parks Heights. The public hearing was properly advertised. An affidavit of publication has been received for filing. Letters of no objection have been received from the appropriate parties. All interested parties have been notified as to the date of the public hearing. There was no correspondence at the time we had our notes, but today correspondence was received and emailed individually to the commissioners. This matter is properly before the board to be heard.
And I do have a couple. This, you don't
Is my
care.
understanding on this one, we do not have to
Okay.
have the swearing in. Is that correct, Jewel?
That is
Not
correct. This is a
quite right.
legislative matter.
Okay. We had a bit of a presentation last week. Do we need any more information from staff? Mr. Justice?
Only if there's, I know there's been conversations with the applicant and staff, only if there's been a change in the application or staff recommendation.
I think there might be some extenuating circumstances that the applicant would like to speak to.
Well,
Perhaps-
I'd like staff to speak first.
Okay, that's fine.
Good evening, Commissioners. Andrew Pupke, Division Director with Administrative Services. Commissioner Justice, to your question, there have been no further developments. Been some discussion, but no further developments as it relates to a decision. Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay, don't go away. Commissioner Peters?
Yeah, I think I'm hesitant to wait until Brian presents, if that's okay, and then I'll ask my questions.
Okay. All right, great. Okay, Brian Onks, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, Brian Ungst, 625 Court Street, on behalf of the applicant, Wat Lao, which is a Laotian Buddhist monastic temple that has been operating continuously in Layleman at this location since at least 1988. So for the past 32 years has been serving Layleman as a not-for-profit religious institution. And I did watch the staff report. I do want to say we do have the president of the temple here, Sesu Fulfisarat, along with the civil engineer, Brian Barker, who's been involved with this application. I first want to thank all of you. We were able to have one-on-one meetings with 6 out of the 7 of you, and I know that we've already taken a lot of your time on this, so I'm going to try to be as concise as possible while also doing my best job to explain my client's position and how we got here. I also want to thank the staff. This is the least adversarial, most collaborative staff recommendation of denial I've ever had to try to overcome. And I will tell you, they've worked really hard on this. We were very close to an agreement back in May and June and July, and then all of a sudden at the end, we have a respectful disagreement. It's more of a preference disagreement. I would describe it as more of a preference disagreement as opposed to a policy disagreement. And I'll get into that a little bit here in a second. But I did... I know I didn't meet the deadline to provide you with the Zoom documentation. I was used to using an overhead projector. You all have seen a lot of this stuff. I did email you some pictures. This is a picture of the temple as it exists and as it has existed since 1988 in Layleman. And I want to start out by talking about why are we here? How did we get here? Well, in August of, actually July of 2019, my client received a code enforcement notice. And as part of that code enforcement notice, first I'd like to say code enforcement has forbearance on any code enforcement activity pending the outcome of this process and the outcome of the Board of Adjustment process. So that's another example of the great staff collaboration we've received to date on this project. But as part of that code enforcement discussion, my client learned, the current leadership learned for the first time that this religious use in the residentially zoned neighborhood needed what was called a special exception years ago and is now called a conditional use approval from the Board of Adjustment. And so we talked to Glenn Bailey and Michael and Chelsea Hardy about, well, what do we need to do to file our Board of Adjustment application? And Mr. Bailey put together this hand-drawn sketch for us. And we learned there's an alley that bifurcates my client's property, a 16-foot wide alley. It's a paper alley. It's never been maintained by the county. It's never been used by the county. It's not used by the public. It's maintained by my client. And it provides access to a dumpster in an auto storage facility, which I can show you a picture of in a moment. And it's been platted since 1924. So I want to point that out. That alley's been there for 96 years and has never once been used by anybody other than my client. My client assumed that it was part of its property. And so the issue that we can't go to the Board of Adjustment until we talk to you is that we have 4 feet of sidewalk and fence that encroaches into the alley, and we have 6 inches of an unpermitted structure that encroaches into the alley. And so the staff said you either have to remove those or you have to file a petition to vacate the alley. And so we said, okay, well, it sounds like filing a petition to vacate the alley would be a good solution. That would be what we'd like to do. So we filed the petition. We got letters of no objection from all of the relevant utilities, Pinellas County utilities. There are no utilities in the area. And we had a meeting with the staff. And excuse me for COVID brain, the meeting with the staff was sometime in between March and May. It was sometime in that time frame. And the staff said, you know, we have this linking Layleman plan. And I'm very familiar with the not-for-profit activity in Layleman to maintain and improve alleyways. I'm very familiar with that from my work with the Juvenile Welfare Board. And we said, we understand that. Why don't we move the alley? We'll just relocate it to the western side. It'll still connect to the other alleyway that's on abutting property. And the initial response we got from staff in May, June, and July was that's fine. Not only is that fine, but Pinellas County Mapping and Surveying actually went out and surveyed the relocated portion of the alley, and we've already signed an easement that the staff had us prepare. So we've already granted the relocated alley, which is the same dimensions as the current alley, contingent on your approval of the petition to vacate. I want to read a little bit from the application because I think it'll describe the circumstances out there better. And I do have additional pictures. I was out at the property on Sunday. Discontinuance and release of the alley will not negatively impact public utilities, the existing roadway network, lot access, or pedestrian ingress and egress. Based on the letters and review and recommendation received, all impacted utility companies have indicated they do not object to the release of the alley. Additionally, there is no need for easements for public utilities, including stormwater drainage and pedestrian easements, as Pinellas County Utilities does not object to our petition to vacate. This is important. The alley does not provide access to any adjacent lots. The Ann Park Heights plat was recorded in 1924, when the county was 13 years old. The plat uses 16-foot alleyways to separate the platted lots. However, the alleyways have not ever been utilized as official roads or for ingress and egress purposes. Rather, the platted alleys have operated as unopened paper streets and visually appear to be part of the neighboring properties. In other words, there's no delineated alley network there. If you go out there, it looks like you're going into someone else's backyard if you were to try to go across my client's property. The alley is adjacent only to the subject property and will not create a boundary dispute or have a detrimental effect upon neighboring lots. As such, vacation of the alley would not adversely impact the existing roadway network or deny access to any lot of record. Presently, and this is again important, the alley is not utilized by the county for a right-of-way or public corridor. It's been there for 96 years. The alley is not paved or maintained by the county because it has never been dedicated as a street for public use. Based on the size, 16-foot width, and location of the alley, basically in people's backyards, it is unlikely that it will become a right-of-way in the future for pedestrian or vehicular access or a significant component of a community redevelopment or community plan. And I do want to address that because I think that, is the philosophical preference of the staff is their reading of the relevant planning documents. And so I think the most important one and the one that's the most applicable is the Layleman Form-Based Code. Layleman Form-Based Code and District. and of course we took this into consideration while filing the application. Division 6, Development and Design Standards 6-4. Existing street preservation. The vacation of public streets and alleys is discouraged in order to preserve the existing street network, unless new public streets and alleys are constructed that serve the function of those vacated. So the applicable code says, as long as we are providing a new alley that serves the function of the alley that's being vacated, 16-foot wide on the same property that connects to the exact same network of alleys, then it's not discouraged. Or in other words, you can do it. Again, this is a legislative decision. You all know well what that means. You have extreme discretion to do what you think is the right thing here. All you need is a rational basis. We feel that what we have proposed is more consistent with the code than what the staff has proposed, which is you're not allowed to vacate or you shouldn't vacate it. And what we're saying is it's discouraged unless we're providing the solution that we've provided. And again, which we provided initially with the collaboration of the staff. The other thing that the staff mentioned and that we looked at was the Lincoln-Lellman plan. Lincoln-Lellman plan. The word alley is not in this plan. The word alleyway is not in this plan. Right-of-way is mentioned 6 times. And all of the images that right-of-way refers to are public roads, are streets. So respectfully, I personally didn't find anything in the Lincoln-Lellman plan that said you shouldn't do what we're asking you to do or you can't do what we're asking you to do. Now, there is the Lellman CRA plan, which we also read. An alleyway is mentioned in the CRA plan. And specifically, on page 16, it says that part of the infrastructure and transportation strategy for the Lellman CRA is to support initial cleanup and ongoing maintenance of alleyways to improve functionality, which this wouldn't have a detrimental impact on, and to support future redevelopment and infill designs that incorporate rear alleyway access. I think that's what the staff is really talking about. They want to have rear alleyway access for garbage trucks, but what the plan says is for future redevelopment and infill projects, which this is not. This is an existing use that is not changing, that has been there for 32 years, that we are simply trying to become code compliant. So we're simply trying to become code compliant. I think I did a more concise job explaining our position than I thought I would. The only other thing I will respond to is I did watch the work session. We did receive the 3 aerials that the staff had kind of put together last week, and they were working on this all through last week. So they've been trying to find a solution here. The problem that we have, and Mr. Barker might be able to address this better, the problem we have is that what they're requesting is for us to dedicate an additional 43 feet by 36 feet of the northwest corner of the property. That removes 2 parking spaces from the site plan, which makes us not code compliant for parking. So again, we're not at the site plan stage here, as you all know. We're trying to get to the site plan stage, and I'm already not compliant with my use. I gotta get a conditional use approval for that, which is allowed. I'm currently not complying with my setbacks and my encroachment of the alley, which we're trying to address by relocating it. But if I relocate the alley and I take away 2 parking spaces, I'm supposed to have 14 spaces and now I only have 12. So I don't know if the parking reduction's even allowed. I got the plans on Friday. Mr. Barker had time to look at it and respond on Monday. So we're trying to solve code issues and not create new code issues. So respectfully, again, I do appreciate all the staff work on this. I appreciate all your time on this. I wish that I had been smart enough to come up to a better solution. But I think that the solution that we initially proposed to the staff back in the March, April, May timeframe that initially seemed acceptable, which now is not to them, I think it's a preference dispute, a reasonable preference dispute, as opposed to a real significant policy issue. I don't think anybody's up here saying that if you grant this relocation, it's going to tear down the Lellman plan. My clients are not there to tear down the Lellman plan. They've been building up Lellman for 32 years. My clients are not developers. They came to me for help. They came to Mr. Barker for help, and now we're here to ask you for help. And that concludes the only other thing, the staff has conditioned the approval on not just the relocation of the alley, but also 6 months to come into compliance. My understanding is that compliance doesn't just mean Board of Adjustment conditional use approval, it also means site plan approval, which is a staff level approval after the Board of Adjustment. I think it's going to take us 3 to 4 months to get our Board of Adjustment approval. And with COVID, I've seen permitting, it takes a while. So what we would ask for is a year. So a motion to approve vacating the alley, relocating it on the 16-foot wide portion on the western side of the lot, and giving us a year to come into full code compliance. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please.
When they sent you the piece to the easement corner, I guess, if you changing that corner to an easement, what is the amount that your engineer said could be taken to help with the turning radius without affecting your parking?
I'd have to ask Mr. Barker if he could maybe address that. Brian, if you look at the site plan here, it looks like there is some space between the rear stall of this parking. I don't know if you know what that dimension is.
Sure. Good evening, Commissioners. No, I did not look specifically at how much we could afford to give up. We just looked at what the staff gave us. And it's hard to see on the small drawing, but we showed 2 parking spaces right where the requested corner clip would be. And it appears, my best guess, it's somewhere between 5 and 10 feet.
North and south?
North and south from where the northernmost parking space would lie.
Okay.
Now, as far as a turning radius goes, what we were provided by staff was a large garbage truck that they were requesting. I think it was a 43 by 38 corner clip.
Yeah, it was just, and I think when we talked to staff, and also met with Brian, but if it was at the other side, there was the discussion that it was easier to do a 3-point turn with a pure T. So when you come to the other side, you don't have that same scenario, but I'm not sure that adding just even a little turning radius doesn't actually get you that. I mean, get you what they're hoping for in the other scenario without getting the optimum scenario that they're looking, the staff is looking for. So I'm just trying to make sure I understand what you have, what they think they have beforehand and what they're hoping to get afterwards, that it's the same.
I think I follow what you're saying is with the current situation, could you get a garbage truck to make a turn?
Yeah.
And I think you're correct. I don't think you would.
Even with the current one?
Correct, because it's the same situation, except the only other issue is you could drive straight through.
Right, on that one leg.
Correct.
But
where the alley currently lies.
But you still have to deal with the east-west piece as well.
Correct.
So somewhere along the way, you're going to run into that issue. I'm sure staff will comment on that, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a question for staff. I guess we don't have any diagrams that we can put up here.
Yes, we have the PowerPoint. Brian, if you could bring up the PowerPoint, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Brian.
Commissioner, what are you looking for particularly, please?
Well, the solution proposed was to move the alley to the west side of I'm assuming that's north, to the west side of the property. Why can't it just move over 2 feet?
Well,
why does it have to move all the way? Because that would not cause a problem with getting trucks through.
Well, it creates a substandard width of the alley going from 16 to 14.
Well, not if you expanded it 2 feet on the other end, on the other side.
Right, then it creates an offset in the alignment, which is what we're trying to avoid.
Yeah, but it's a 2-foot offset, not however wide that lot is.
Sure. And as Mr. Ongst explained, the most recent consideration for a solution that was presented last week, which indicates that we would need that easement that he described, is probably not the most favorable option that we have presented. Just before Thanksgiving, the applicant's engineer as well as Tom Washburn from Public Works got together and looked at a scenario where the alley would be able to be maintained and the parking that's required for the compliance would go on lot number 7, and Blake can speak to that to a greater extent. But in that case, the alley would not need to be vacated. It could either be used as a drive aisle for the parking on lot number 7, or it could remain an alley and the drive aisle for the parking could be on the very western side of lot number 7. So I think there is an option that is to be considered other than the one that was most recently discussed as it relates to the turning radius for the garbage trucks.
Well, and that seems like the simplest thing.
Yeah, it does. The issue that it doesn't address, that Mr. Onks didn't necessarily speak to, is the encroachment of the non-permitted structure, which is encroaching into the setback and into the right-of-way. So that would still have to be addressed.
And has been for,
I'm sorry?
and has been for many, many, many years. Just saying. Okay. Did you have something different? Some other?
Thank you. Blake Lyon, Director of Building and Development Review Services. My only comment was simply going to be to the fact that to move the alley 2 feet over to accommodate unpermitted and illegal construction isn't a direction that we usually take from a staff perspective. We would recommend either maintaining the alley in its current configuration, and as Andrew described, using that as a drive aisle to provide parking to on lot 7, which would be subject to the Board of Adjustment's approval for that, or to provide an opportunity to do it elsewhere and vacate the entirety of it. But to do it for the purposes of a non-permitted construction and something that we can't retain is not something we would pursue.
Yes, Commissioner Justice.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I guess I'm taking a little back about what we're doing then. If we agreed to the petitioner's his idea tonight of approving the vacation and giving them a year to come into compliance, then they still would have to go through all the hurdles of, that building would have to come down, correct?
A portion of the building, yes. So I don't know if we have a closer indication, but the lots that were on 4, 5, and 6 historically, which are on the east side of the alley, were constructed with original single-family homes. They have removed one of those single families. So there's one on the south end and one on the north end. And then there has been a new building constructed along the east side of the alley, which effectively has created a U-shaped configuration. On that portion of building that's kind of a north-south orientation, there has been an appendage that's been built off of that does not have the benefit of a permit. And when you look at the photographs of that building, it's not something, so in this indication, Brian, on the image on the left, if you can see kind of the white, yeah, there you go, right where the cursor is, that's the portion that we're referencing. So in effect, the sequence, if the commission were to approve the alley vacation, again, they would have to go through the process of establishing and legitimizing the use that's there. A portion that didn't get described in tonight's conversation is Mr. Ung's reference that they've been there since 1988. They did come before the county in 1990 requesting, at that time, a special exception. It was February 7th of 1990. And at that time, the board denied it. Now, I don't know the specific reasons behind that denial, but they would need to come back through under our current code today and request what we refer to as a Type 2 use. There's a Type 2 use for religious institutions within a residential zone. This is all entirely zoned R4. There's also a Type 2 use that's required when you're parking as a primary use on Lot 7. So those are 2 items that would have to go through the Board of Adjustment to get approval for that Type 2 use. Assuming for the sake of our conversation that those were granted, then you would go through the site plan process, as Mr. Barker had referred to, and then they would also be required to go through if there were any building improvements. Now, the assumption is that they would take down that non-permitted construction to abate that violation. If they wanted to choose to build something in its stead, they would go through the building permit. But that would only be required if they were constructing something new. They could do the site improvements, a parking lot, any of those kinds of things through the site plan process.
And they, I think I know more now and know less, I think. So,
All right.
the vote was in 1990. I was going to ask Commissioner Seal if she remembered it, but
I wasn't quite a baby, but
so if that appendage, which from the pictures I've seen looked like it would meet any building code. I'm not an expert, but it doesn't look like it's. I mean, it looks like it's interior drywall on an exterior, and there's an opening on the roof. And but if that was removed, then they wouldn't need to vacate the alley unless they wanted to build something else. Correct?
Correct. Yes. The other thing I should note is that the brown roof that you see on the image there on the left that has the north-south kind of vertical orientation there, that building is the building that was built with the benefit of a permit and complies with the R4 side yard setback of 6 feet. What doesn't comply is that white roofed portion that has kind of the lean-to roof to it. That not only does that project into the setback that's there, but it also projects across the property line into the alley and the right-of-way. So removal of that would bring them back into conforming situation with respect to the building side of it. They have since removed the other white roof there, which is a canopy structure that they were identified and cited for. So that's been removed. So from a building perspective, they would be consistent. That would just leave the zoning issue to resolve.
And that would be through the Board of Adjustment?
Correct. Those two items I referenced earlier.
Yes, Commissioner Eggers.
Well, this is 30 years, some plus in the making. I don't know how many of the folks that are still at that are at the organization now that were there then. In the spirit of trying to make something happen, as opposed to come up with I think this way too. Sometimes trying to come up with reasons not to make it happen. It seems to me that the solution of moving the alleyway over, it takes care of one issue but they still have to go through a whole lot of other steps. And what we're doing is we're providing a solution for them to go down those other steps. And frankly, they've been using the property as though it was theirs. It's just makes sense to me that if staff originally thought that it was a good idea and we got into the turning radius thing, I still think we have the same problem the other way in some instances, not in all instances, and that this is a good way to compromise and make it happen and let them go on their way to making this, all the other hearings that they're going to have to go through. Because to your point, I mean, that construction is, I don't know how that it didn't get passed by anybody, but got built. So they're going to have to take care of that. I think the institutional use probably will be fine, but there's a lot of work that they're going to have to go through. And I think moving it over there takes care of the situation. And I think we can accommodate a less of a turning radius than the ideal and still get done there what we would have had to get done on the other side. Maybe not in the same place, but the east-west was still going to have to turn and go north. So we still have that problem to deal with. And we're just going to try to fix that problem here with a smaller turning radius than we would ideally like to see. So I think it makes it happen, and it gives them a chance to move forward and get it taken care of. So that's just my thoughts on it.
Okay, but can we go home now? If they did that and moved the alley to the other side of the other lot 7, I guess that is, they would still have to fix the code problem. They would still have to tear down that building.
They will have to address the building violation that exists regardless of where the alley configuration goes. So that in and of itself is an enforcement effort that we will undertake. As we often do, and as the Commissioner alluded to, we try to identify means and methods for remedying those situations. The vacation or relocation of the alley was one component of that. They still need to do the Board of Adjustment hearings.
Okay.
They still need to, okay.
You're just going to confuse me. If they took that down, they would not need to vacate the right-of-way.
You're correct.
Well, why, if they're going to have to tear it down anyway, why would you ask to vacate the alley? The
So
alley?
they could have contiguous property.
But,
It's been well,
but they can, the question I have is,
Go
can
ahead.
they get a building permit after the fact and pay penalties?
I don't
We
think it
do
would get a
offer
permit, would it?
after the fact, it's a twice the permitting fee. I will tell you, based on my evaluation of that structure, that appendage, they're better off starting with new construction.
So could they build, so to your question, if they tore it down and could they rebuild it if we vacated the alley?
If they what the alley vacation does from a building perspective is it would adjust where the property line is and it would adjust where the setback line is measured from.
And that's
So
the setback line's the important part.
Correct. So both of those are important. So if the alley were to be either vacated or relocated further to the west, that would give them more room to establish legitimate construction and go through the building permit process and do something.
Which they can't do.
But I'm going back to Commissioner Gerard's idea. If you could move it 2 feet or 3 feet, that would not make a turning radius problem and possibly solve everybody's problems.
Except they would still make them tear it down anyway.
No, I know.
wouldn't want you to do
They're
it
going to
on
make them tear it down anyway.
Yeah.
Right,
Sounds
that's
like.
what I'm saying.
And that's the point I wanted to make, is it shouldn't be on the presumption of retaining that
Right.
current appendage. It should be accommodating something new.
Yeah, that's the, yeah.
So the other question I had is on the property itself, if they, and I guess I'm going to have to ask the applicant, but do they use the screen porch? Do they need the screen porch? On the current plan, could they put a screen porch elsewhere or not? Obviously, they took the canopy down, so.
Yeah, those are different, yeah.
Yeah, I can't speak to what's inside.
Commissioner Peters.
Well, you can answer whether they could put a screen porch elsewhere on the property legally.
Yes, what we would have to do is through that site plan process, look at the impervious surface ratio. And so, yes, if they can meet those requirements, then we would permit that.
But it also already looks like they need more open green space
There is a challenge.
and more
with-
landscaping, so they may already not have room to put it elsewhere.
If
is
you
what
make
I'm-
those properties contiguous and all one, that can be partly achieved in Lot 7.
Right.
Okay.
That was,
Go ahead.
well, I have several questions, Madam Chair, and I think you just answered that one, that alley separates their property, and if they could switch it, then it would be contiguous, and they would have the ability to build and have the landscaping and have everything that they need to be in proper compliance, correct?
Correct.
So that's really kind of critical for them to be in compliant, is for them to move that alley. Is my perception, is that your perception?
That's one way to achieve compliance. There are others.
So I'm looking at your community, your larger community view. And so for 96 years, we haven't used those alleys. And those alleys were designed probably too small for our garbage trucks to run through anyways. And so for 96 years, we haven't had a vehicle go through those alleys at all. So now suddenly we're worried about a turning range when 96 years we haven't had a vehicle go down there at all. So I don't see the concern on that one. And when I talked to several citizens in Lowman, and over the 2 years that I've been on the commission, they have complained about the alleys because, that's where drug dealers go when people are stealing things. That was so they go to hide. And so I understand the Lowman plan. I get the concept of it. But when I spoke to some of the residents, they thought it was a good idea to vacate that alley, and several of them just don't want alleys because of the crime and the drugs and the garbage and everything else that's associated with them. But I think in the presentation when I spoke to Mr. Ongst, and I sensed a little frustration is that you guys had an agreement and this was the agreement, and then suddenly and papers were signed, and then suddenly papers were not signed. Is that correct?
Andrew can speak to that a little bit.
Yes, Commissioner. Mr. Ongst is correct that the petition was initially provided, in fact, starting in February, and between February and early summer there was discussion, and 2 of the departments were objecting to it. There was a discussion about options that could resolve that. The one department that was not objecting initially, after the new option was provided, That department then looked at it, this is Public Works as it relates to the turning radiuses that we're describing in regards to the garbage trucks, and they objected as a result of that realignment of the alley to the west, as it would offset it from that straight line north-south alley that is currently in existence, at least as it relates to the platting of the alleys.
Right, so if we were going to do a full-on garbage pickup through alleys, and I'm looking at your large community view on your presentation, I see that we're going to have this kind of problem in all kinds of places. Because how are you going to do alley pickup where the auto car care is and the other blocks? So if you're going to have seamless alley garbage pickup, are we going to have this problem on every single commercial property and other homeowners because you can't do comprehensive garbage alley done? Just based on the photograph you're providing us in your presentation, I don't know that garbage alley pickup, and if we are going to do garbage alley pickup, what's the time frame to start garbage alley pickup? When's the timeline to go full-on alley garbage pickup? Because I just don't even know if is that a concrete plan? Is that something we're just talking about? 96 years, we haven't put a truck down those alleys, but now we want to put a truck down those alleys.
Do you want to speak to
And are those alleys wide enough for a truck to go down?
Tom Washburn can speak to that, but if you may, Carol Strickland from Planning can speak a little bit more to the overall plan for the alleys in the future.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Good evening, Tom Washburn with Public Works. Let me pull this down so you can hear me a little bit clearer. The garbage truck layout was part of that Linking-Lillman plan, and when we started laying out the alleys, part of the work that we had to do was to find out if it was even feasible for vehicles to use the alleys. What we showed on the diagrams that Kelly presented last week is what the impact would be if that alley were offset. So it's not what we're requesting. We just want to simply show that if a garbage truck, and the garbage truck also resembles, your large pickup trucks. They've got similar turning radiuses. So, and that's part of the discussion we've had with planning as we're going through this Linking-Lillman and the alleyway study is, if those alleys are used for rear parking, what type of vehicles? Is it simply passenger vehicles? Is it going to accommodate garbage trucks? And when we were laying out the turning templates, the garbage trucks also resemble your larger pickup trucks, the same type of turnings. And so what we were demonstrating is if that alley were offset to make that north-south movement, that is the impact that would take place. It's that 38 by 45.
But do we have a plan? Do we have a timeline plan to do garbage pickup in an alley?
No, Carol can address this, but the Linking-Lillman plan is exactly that. It's a plan. It's a first look at ways in which you can better the community and offer different options and alternatives to have private investment. So it is that's last year was the first time in which we adopted the Linking-Lillman plan. There's no, fixed timeline or implementation. I'm sure that would occur project by project and block by block over time. If there's a change like this within, the impediment. There's going to be many impediments, and it may take, 2 lifetimes. It may never get there. But that is, the idea was to have a Linking-Lillman plan to bring all the community development assets together.
Okay, thank you. Because in your larger community view, it doesn't appear that that's a possibility, but I haven't seen it laid out in a plan like you have. But based on the aerial, I don't know. My recommendation is to let them get back into compliance and even move that. I just don't see after 96 years that all of a sudden we're going to have vehicles go down these alleys. I just don't see that.
Well, and Commissioner, part of what the Linking-Lillman plan does in its in the setting, establishing a vision for what you want in the community, and when you have an asset like that and you evaluate that, part of what the benefits that alleys can provide not only is garbage pickup, but it can be an opportunity for, and especially as you start to revitalize an area that's in the CRA, you can start to get individual single-family homes. You can get carriage style or accessory units that have rear alley access. Okay. You can start to put eyes on the alley. They become a more activated space. And so part of the overall philosophy and vision and discussion is we have this asset in the community, as you rightly pointed out, that has been there and been underserved, underutilized, underrecognized, and how do we begin to take advantage and and begin to think about ways to re-envision the community and utilize those assets that we already have. So part of what our evaluation is to try to say, okay, before we start giving these away, you know, in a piecemeal format or by individual request, is there a bigger unifying piece that ties all this together and allows us to really see and materialize the benefits of these assets that we already have? So that's really part of the kind of the fundamental philosophy that stems from that. And you're absolutely right. It's taken quite a bit of time to get there. But part of our hesitation, I think, from the staff perspective, is we've finally gone through that effort in establishing this plan, and we don't want the first action to be to circumvent that direction that we now finally have. So
That makes great sense, but not one community member has opposed it, correct? So there's been absolutely no letters or anybody has contacted you to oppose this. At least the people I've contacted in the documents, it says nobody's opposed it.
Well, it should be noted that the Lealman form-based code has not been adopted yet. I mean, that's in its draft stages, and there's been community outreach, and there's still more to come in that respect. So it hasn't, the linking Lealman plan has been adopted, but the Lealman form-based code, that's the implementing piece of it, hasn't been finalized
Okay,
yet.
thank you, I appreciate it.
Well, and yes, and I think the other issue is that they own both these pieces of property, and it's not at all unusual for somebody to come and ask us to vacate a right-of-way that's between their two pieces of property. Go ahead.
And I think that, you know, we're not getting rid of an alley. I mean, the net gain is, you know, we're not gaining, we're not losing, we're just moving an alley. So, and it's a north-south alley. And I think regardless of however you set this up, you're going to have turning radius issues. As it stays now, you're going to have a turning radius issue. If you move it over to the other side, you're going to have a different turning radius issue. It's just going to be either, you know, going east-west to north or going north to east. I mean, you know, so I just think you're going to have that issue. And I think this is, again, a way that we can accommodate an owner trying to put their properties together. Maybe they do get rid of that property. You know, I can't imagine it being approved, but that appendage, as we talk about, but they could rebuild something onto their now owned property and accommodate their needs.
Yeah.
And still maintain an alley and still do everything that we want in the Lealman plan.
Yeah, and one last comment I'll make on this is that the north-south alley in its current configuration, to hear Mr. Unks describe it, was not a known entity, but it's been a platted alley right away, you know, since 1924. The concern that we had from the staff perspective, if you move it to the west, is now you have a property owner that owns Lot 8, which is immediately adjacent to the west, that now has an alley next to them that didn't intend to have that circumstance when they purchased that property. So it's a circumstance that we're potentially putting on that adjacent property owner onto Lot 8. Whereas if we retained that alley in its current configuration, you're absolutely right, Commissioner. It's a north-south. It's a substandard. Commissioner Peters touched on it. You know, these were platted at 16 feet wide. Ideally, in today's circumstance, we'd go for a 20-foot wide alley, but we're not trying to expand it. We're just trying not to make it worse.
Commissioner Long?
Want to say something, Madam Chair?
I was going to suggest we just, somebody move to vacate the alley.
I'm going to move that we vacate the alley, number one. Number two, that we give them a year to come into compliance or whatever Brian thinks that's possible. And I also want to just say I have nothing but the utmost respect and admiration for our staff and how knowledgeable they are and how fabulous they are presenting their side of the argument. All that to say, these folks have been good partners in the community for 32 years. They own the property. We're talking and trying to make them jump through hoops for ideas and plans that we have no idea today that will ever come to fruition, and they may change a half a dozen times. In the meantime, these folks deserve the ability to do and conduct their work and serve the citizens. That's what they're doing there. They're serving the community. So I make my motion, and I hope you'll agree with me. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Who seconded that?
You seconded it? Okay.
Yes, Commissioner Seal. Unless we have more questions, yes, Commissioner Justice.
Just one last, I guess this is from the applicant. If it was vacated, and again, correct me if we had several conversations, you and I, over the last week, so I don't remember on which one, but was there the thought of still leaving, granting the county an easement for the alleyway?
Yes, sir. So as part of this, what we are doing is we're moving the 16-foot wide alley to the westernmost portion of my client's Lot 7. And I did just want to address, Lot 8, the owner of Lot 8 sold my client Lot 7, and he got notice, and he doesn't object to the alley being relocated. So I don't think that's a big concern. But yes, you're getting the same exact alley you have now. It's just moved over, and it's connecting to the same network that it connects to now, with the same abutting neighbor to the north that's there now. And that was a solution that was initially acceptable. So
Okay,
again,
but that's different than what I was just saying as far as granting the easement of the existing space.
So the problem with that, and I talked to, you have really smart people, smarter than me, that have tried to think about this every which way. And I talked to Attorney Hardy today about that exact option, which was, because what we're going to do is we're going to pave the current alleyway. So when it's vacated, it's going to be a driveway. So it's going to look more like an alley than it does now. And you know what? If you pave the alley to the north, I'm sure they're not going to object if people drive over it or walk over it or ride their bikes on it. That's not the kind of neighbors my clients are. But the point is, I said, well, what if we gave you an ingress egress easement over the current alley, and we just took the 6 feet or the 6 inches or whatever we needed? Now, keep in mind, the complicated problem, as Commissioner Seal drilled down on, is we have a setback problem. So it's not just for that unpermitted structure, which we're going to use that footprint. As Commissioner Egger said, we want to use that footprint whether we have to rebuild it or not. So the bottom line is Attorney Hardy felt like it wasn't a solution. I didn't disagree with her, but we did have the conversation. The easiest solution is either to vacate it and move it over where we want to move it, or not vacate it at all. And then we have to deal with the consequences. Those are the two, I think those are the two easiest solutions. The other thing too, and to address Commissioner Gerard and Commissioner Seal, there are 2 large oak trees on the property that we are preserving that are in the middle of the property. So if we moved the alley into the middle of the property, then you'd have issues with the trees. And like I said, in September, mapping and surveying mapped and surveyed the relocated alley, and they gave us an easement and we signed it. And so I think it's at a point where we should either do it the way it's been proposed by the applicant, or just not do it at all.
And so if we approve tonight, then it goes through site plan for the location of that alley and all that kind of stuff.
So we have to get a board of it. I'm sorry, was that for me or for Mr. Line?
Whoever knows.
Okay.
Well, we're friends, so it's
yeah,
all right.
that's right. Go ahead.
My suggestion is, if their intent is to vacate the alley, to Mr. Young's point, then it's better served to just vacate the alley. We can address the other portion during the site plan process. So if we need easements, if we need,
That's what I wanted to see, if we needed to get into any of that tonight.
So it's either vacate the alley or don't vacate the alley, but if we need to adjust it or move it, we can deal with that easements and that through the site plan. Because we'll work with Mr. Barker and everybody else to make sure, because part of it's going to come down to things like whether we can retain the trees, what that turning radius is for the vehicles, what the parking configuration is, if it's tandem parking spots, if it's single loaded. I mean, there's a lot of things that can come in at the site plan level.
Okay, all right, very good, thank you.
Well, so is it your understanding we're talking about vacating but moving the alley, or vacating the alley right where it is right now?
Either vacate it or don't vacate it. That's what we're requesting.
Is vacating where it is right now, not moving it. Now, but I just heard Brian say that was a bad thing.
What? Wait a minute.
No.
I just want to make sure we're not going to.
No. What I meant to say, Madam Chair, was that moving it 2 feet over was a bad thing because it doesn't solve the setback problem. It creates problem for the trees. But for the first time just now, I heard the staff say they'd rather have you just vacate it where it is now and let them figure out whether they want it moved during the site plan process or they want any other kind of easement during the site plan process. And we have no objection to that. That's totally fine. We are happy to work with them through the site plan process. We're
Okay.
going to have to do that anyway. And I'd rather have them be comfortable with an alleyway or an easement than just forcing it on them. So.
Okay, no more talking.
And just to be clear, Commissioner Long and Peters, that were the motion maker and seconder, my understanding was your motion was to just simply vacate the right-of-way.
Vacate the alley.
The alley, I'm sorry. It's right-of-way.
so
It's
confused.
right-of-way. No, just to be clear, your motion, the way I understood it, was just to vacate.
Vacate was to do what the applicant wants.
Oh,
Vacate and move it to
Vacate
the
the
other
alley.
side.
well, but they want to vacate and
That's what
move
they
the
want.
alley.
They also had a timetable on all the,
And I put that in there.
So what are we voting on then?
So, yeah.
Oh, my God.
why don't you withdraw and restate?
Can you just say vacate the existing alley?
Is that what you want, Brian? I put that in there already. Okay, that.
That what? What did he?
Vacate the existing.
All right.
Vacate the existing alley
That's what you
without
seconded.
moving it.
You seconded.
Right.
Okay, all in favor?
Hold on, hold on, hold
I have
on.
to ask for
If
input, I know.
if I
I'm
can
kidding.
try to state what is before,
Yes.
what is pending, a vacation of the alley, period,
Right.
with 12 months for the property owner to come into compliance with the building code, the zoning code, and the
That's
other
what I
issues that have been
said.
outlined.
Right.
I'm just trying to
Exactly.
clarify for the record.
We just wanted to make sure what you said meant.
Okay, so,
Commissioner Eggers.
all right, I thought we'd been talking the whole time about vacating it and moving it over to the west side of the property. Because I don't want to give up the alley. I thought that was the whole point. We keep the alley, we keep the alley rights and move it to the west side. I thought that's what we've been talking about the whole time. And now I'm just hearing we're just going to vacate it. Why would staff want to not ensure that we have an
Okay.
alley on the western side?
But they're giving us an easement over it anyway.
I was going to offer a friendly amendment.
Please.
So you mentioned a year to go through Board of Adjustment and site planning. Well, in that site planning process, I would urge the two parties to work together to create the new alley or whatever the county needs as far
Okay,
as.
that's fine.
So that's my friendly amendment.
Done.
Okay, but I also have a comment to make.
Please.
Okay. I agree that this, that these folks have been
we
good
do.
community members here for 32 years. However, as you all know, we don't always reward behavior where they have been out of code and where they have done buildings without permits.
Right.
That is disturbing to me, and I'm only putting that in the record that this is a very unusual circumstance because we normally don't go ahead and work with people until they come into code.
Right,
So-
but I don't think we're clearing them of that responsibility
No, we're not,
either.
but I'm saying
So-
we normally don't reward people for being denied in 1990 and also continuing to operate basically illegally. So, but given the circumstances, I'm in favor of it. I just had to put that into the record.
Okay, I have to hear your friendly amendment, though, because I already forgot it. And we need a second on
The
it.
friendly amendment is during the year, during the site planning process, that if there is a need for an alley further to the west, that the applicant will work with them to solve that problem, whatever it may be. We are not designers or traffic engineers.
Thank goodness. Do we have a second on that friendly amendment? Okay. We still need to take public comment, don't we, Brian?
Yeah, I just really want
And
to.
I have a card.
I just wanted to make one comment to what
Yes.
Commissioner Seal just said, and I understand what you were saying about the rewarding of behavior, but I do want to. I mean, I try to think about the church that I belong to, that 30 years ago, people that were there did stuff, and I'm now there now, and I had no idea that that stuff happened 30 years ago, 20 years ago, or 10 years ago. And I'm not saying that exists in this case, but there is a real possibility that nobody necessarily knew that they were doing anything wrong or illegal. They came in and they had what they had. So I'm not saying we don't necessarily want to reward it, but on the other hand, that doesn't necessarily mean that these folks knew that they were operating illegally for all those years either. Just
Well,
doesn't.
but they also built a porch without a permit.
Yeah, I don't know when they built it. I don't know. I don't know who did it.
I don't know.
So-
Anyway,
I
It's
hear
neither
you.
here nor there. I just wanted to have it so it doesn't set future precedent for others.
Good point. Okay, can we vote on that friendly amendment, please? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I have one card from somebody that may still be in the room. Mr. Robert Sosa? No? Okay. Do we have anybody online, Brian?
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, if there are any members of the public that wish to comment on agenda item 48, please raise your hand virtually in the Zoom meeting or hit star 9 on the telephone. And Madam Chair, we do have David Lee who wishes to speak. David, if you go ahead and unmute and give us your spelling and address for the record, you'll have 3 minutes to address the board.
Hey there, David Lee, LEE 4425 46th Avenue North. I'm a resident here in the Lealman CRA, and this property is right around the corner from my house. And this neighborhood is known locally as the Ray Neary neighborhood. It's up and coming neighborhood. It's a great place to live. We're centered around the park there, which has lots of wildlife, and it's a great spot. In addition to that park, another thing that makes us great here is our homegrown temples. We actually have a few of them, and they're a great source of pride. It's kind of one of the things that is special and that makes us unique. They're definitely a cultural asset. But I can't get over this staff denial based on the Linking Lealman plan. To quote them, they're recommending denial of the vacation request based on the needs in the Linking Lealman plan. And come on. Do I need to remind you that 3 blocks away there is another site, the different applicant, and you might know which site I'm talking about, but you have the whole neighborhood there asking you to enforce the Linking Lealman plan because it was relevant there. They refused to do that. And so in this case, we're talking about an alley that nobody uses. I think common sense should prevail on this, and you should exert maximum flexibility. So I would just ask the commission to please support this request. These are great neighbors to have, and they definitely deserve maximum flexibility. Let's do whatever we can to make this happen.
Okay, thank you. All right, anything else? I don't want to hear any more. I might get confused. We have a motion from Commissioner Long, second from Commissioner Peters. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, item 49.
Agenda item number 49 is the first of 2 public hearings regarding a proposed resolution designating the former Bay Point Golf Course as a brownfield site. The public hearing was properly advertised. An affidavit of publication has been received for filing. No correspondence has been received. The matter is properly before the board to be heard, and I just would like to also point out the second hearing will take place on January 12, 2021. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any questions? Move approval? Is that what you said? Thank you. Oh, all right. Do we have any, we don't have any questions about this, so that's it? We don't need to take a vote? Brian, do we have any comments online?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If there's anybody left online that wishes to comment on our last agenda item, number 49, please raise your hand virtually in the Zoom meeting. And Madam Chair, there's nobody. Oh, hold on, we have one.
Wait.
Sorry, Kate raised her hand. I don't have a last name, so Kate, if you give us your first and last name, spelling, and address for the record, you'll have 3 minutes to address the board.
Okay, yes, it's Kate Levanche. My address is 9322 141st Street, Seminole, Florida 33776. And I'm speaking on behalf of State Bay Point Golf Course organization. I'd like to speak in support of the brownfield designation for the Bay Point property. We're pleased with the county's efforts to participate in the program, as we understand that if approved, it will provide reimbursement to the county for a portion of its additional sampling to determine contaminant levels on the site and the important subsequent cleanup. We were also pleased to hear at the informational meeting that the brownfields designation will ultimately ensure that there will be no future private development on the property, keeping the property green in perpetuity. As I'm sure you heard, many residents attended the virtual meeting and asked good questions and indicated their support for the county's application. We look forward to learning of the findings of the additional samplings and more details about the cleanup, how the cleanup will be handled. As we have said before, we applaud the county commissioners for their commitment to green space in the county and their purchase of and investment in the Bay Point property to address stormwater needs. We stand ready to assist in providing the county input from the community and continuing to inform and educate the community as the project progresses. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right.
And Madam Chair, there's nobody else.
Okay. In that case, we are adjourned. Yes, ma'am,
Sharon,
we're not adjourned. Pardon me.
Could I just make a point of order, please, for one quick moment?
Yes, ma'am.
I would just like to say to Brian Lowak, thank you so much for leading us through all of our public hearings in such a professional and solid.
You need Brian Zumwalt.
What did I say?
Although Lowak is a great guy.
Brian,
too.
I apologize. It's late and I'm on my last nerve. But you know who I'm talking about, right?
Thank you. I appreciate that, Commissioner.
I think you've done an outstanding job. Outstanding.
Me too.
And it hasn't been easy, I know. So thank you for letting him work with us, Barry.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, mine too. Thank you. And
I'm sorry I called you Lowak. I knew who you are.
yeah.
He's better looking.
He is, and I
he's
adore
okay
him as
too,
well.
but, yeah. All right. Well, Merry Christmas all.
Merry Christmas.
And Happy New
New
Year.
Year.